Stop there, Garvin. Don't want you starting just yet. I haven't finished.
Chitter-chatter.
So,
you must comply. You must comply. That's it.
hang on a second. He's gone.
Not that easy.
And okay, so welcome to the show, everybody. And in this episode, we're talking about the chatterbox that we find inside our head that sometimes confuses us and doesn't allow us to do the things we really want to do. Do you ever find that, Garvin?
I'm just going to read what the definition of chatterbox is, because we're saying it's inside of our head, but at the same time, I'm realizing I am the outward personification of what's inside my head as well. And what the meaning in the Cambridge English Dictionary is, a person, especially a child, I'm the biggest child in the room, who talks a lot. I wrote that book. The next one is one who engages in much idle talk. I love hearing myself, but to everyone else, it's Billy Idle. And then the next one, a person who tends to use a whole lot of words without having much of anything to say. I never shut up. I didn't kiss the Blarney Stone, I made love to it. But that's all very well in terms of my externalization of lots and lots of talk. As you can see, George said, have you got an opinion? I'm going to read you 3 definitions. And all of them are saying that I am a chatterbox with nothing to say, idle chit-chat, lots of nonsense, no one's interested in it, or it's hearsay. Now, what's going on in my head is idle talk. What's going on in my head is I don't even want to listen to it, and I'm the only one listening to it. And I'm giving it airtime even when I'm walking down the road or sitting in a quiet room. And what my chatterbox, if you can imagine me as an external chatterbox to other people in terms of they don't want to listen to me, don't want to listen to that rubbish, don't want to listen to this chit-chat coming out of that chatterbox, it's just nonsense and taking up their time. Well, multiply that by 10x, that's what's going on in my head, except for what it's saying is totally different. What it's saying is, don't do this, don't do that, this will happen if you do this, oh, they'll all hate you. It's all if, then, this, that, the other, and it's going through permutations and combinations of nonsense. Usually fear. Oh, I don't want to go to the bottom of the road, I'm going to catch the disease. I don't want to go traveling across the world because the plane is going to crash. No, they're extremes, but in my head I've gone through that iteration anyway. I've covered it quite quickly. Then I go to the nonsensical ones and the bland ones. But instead of going, Jesus, it's going to be a holiday of a lifetime and you're going to see the gondolas and Venices and the pigeons at St. Peter's Basilica and you're going, no, it's going to be, I'm going to catch the runs. I'm going to get nausea on the plane. And it's the chatterbox going on multiple times, all the bad, none of the good, because it's saying the idle, it's saying the nonsense. It's not giving you the motivational speak. We need to get the chatterbox from negative to positive, George.
So one of the things I was thinking of there was that when you get the chatterbox actually inside your head, talking away and actually basically putting you down, which is what quite often the inner chatterbox is trying to do to us. Do you have a mechanism that helps you to switch that off? And the other thing then is, if you don't, what happens when you're doing a task like a work task where you're focused in on the specific thing you're trying to do? Does that chatterbox disappear? And are you able to focus on the task at hand?
I'm thinking the chatterbox is the monkeys in the cage and I'm in the zoo and I'm feeding them. I'm throwing bananas at them. I'm going, give them more airtime. Instead of going, get them out of the cage. No, do you want the monkeys out of the cage? No. You don't want them running amok in a zoo scenario. But it's not quite that. It's going, they're chattering. They're inside a cage. If you let them out and give them energy, they're going to run amok. So what we're really talking about is, what are your monkeys up to in there? What are they saying? Should they be in there at all? No, they shouldn't. It's not that you want to give them energy and set them free. It's, no, you need to make them disappear. There shouldn't be any monkeys in there chattering around idly. There should be dreams and visions in there. There should be lists of things to do that are going to grow you and move you forward and you can't wake out of bed and jump up in the morning and this is my list of to-do things. I can't wait to start and what am I doing right now? Actually, just before I came down here, my wife was saying she's reading a book. We're all, excuse the French, reading books. Now, I think because of what's going on outside in terms of the lockdown, we're reading books, we're eating books, we're drinking books, and we're going, now whether we're actually consuming them and doing something with them is another story, but she's in this mindfulness area, and what she said, she just caught me as I was walking down the corridor going, this book, there's 2 things. One of them reminds me, she's saying it reminds me of herself, going, what do you hate most? It's the housework, it's the drudgery. It gets me down. Like, I keep on thinking, never ending. It's never ending. It's eternal. Housework, especially for the ladies at home, and don't mean to be sexist, but unfortunately they get their more than their fair share of it, and the men run off and go to work somewhere else and come up with their excuses why they aren't doing their fair share of the housework, the thing that never ends, unless you can afford a cleaner and that type of thing. So she was saying, now what the other flip side of it was the garden. So the flip side was now she can't wait to get out to the garden and plant the seeds and watch them grow and nurture them. And I go, that was quite a good analogy in the sense of, well, the kids, we planted them and we wear seeds and we better give them a bit of nurturing as well. They're in there playing PS4 and you're out in the garden sort of talking to cabbages. So, but that aside, it's the children are in our garden. The garden is our place as well in terms of it gives her happiness. And I was just mentioning one of my learnings as walking by, the drudgery. Well, if you listen to our podcast or someone else's podcast, you can be multitasking and you won't know as you're doing the housework or the household tasks as opposed to concentrating on them, because you're actually getting energized by listening to this thing in here, which is incentivizing you to go off and do the garden. So you're getting this thing out of the way.
Yeah. And the other thing is that if you're now listening to what we're talking about and the conversation that we're having, your focus is no longer on the inner voice that's inside you that's trying to stop you. You're now listening externally to what's going on in the world around you. Now, there's some interesting things, because you brought up the term mindfulness, and I was looking at some stuff to do with cognitive behavioral therapy. And in it, they're talking about two different types to try and stop the inner chitta-chatta from going on. And one of them is called focus attention. And that is that kind of breathing idea where you focus on your breathing. And when you get those internal chatterbox suddenly kind of going on again, you focus on the actual breathing process. And that's called focus attention.
I'm going to have to remember to breathe through sentences. And actually, I think...
Yeah, absolutely. Because we don't have any passing out on the middle of the show.
I've learned to breathe in and out and things like talk at the same time. So that's what Irish do. We can talk while exhaling and inhaling.
And drinking as well, I hear.
There's nothing that will stop us. Actually,
the old Guinness.
When you said the word mindfulness in the context of chatterbox, what I was starting to think is mindfulness, a full mind. What's your mind full of? And if it's full of chatter and chitter-chatter, then it's full of nothing, of no sense, of nonsense. So your mindfulness is to empty it out and fill it with dreams, fill it with visions, fill it with learning.
The other thing is that before you can actually get to that point, you've got to let that empty it out. So one of the things that they were also talking about, which connects to the mindfulness, was this other one that's called open monitoring, where instead of just focusing on your breathing, where you can have your mind wandering off into another direction, and then you have to bring it back and try and keep that blank mind, which is a very hard thing to do. The open monitoring idea is that basically you actually stop and try to become more objective and look at what's going on in your mind and letting them just go out and just ignoring them. I mean, one of the things that I used to do was that when I used to get thoughts I didn't quite like, I actually thought of them as a sheet of paper. And what I actually did with a sheet of paper was literally...
write them down. Or rip the paper up. It's get them out.
Write it down, rip it up, and throw it in the bin.
And they say
that actually helps.
Yeah, they're saying get all your worries and all the nonsense out on the paper. And I've said that many a time to my other half. It says it's a list of things to do in my head. I don't know if it's 10 items or 100 items, but when you start, you think it's more than what it is. But when you start writing it down, take, and even to my son or daughter, I say, take it out of your head. Write them down. Put them into little groups. They suddenly start clustering under different headings. That's all housework. That's all schoolwork. Well, this is actually game playing. You might find they're thinking about playing games the whole time and no housework or no study. So it's to try and get things that back to what we were talking about in one of our last podcasts, which is get the chitter-chatter out. Write it down. Prioritize it. Give it a weighting, and you might find a bunch of it's nonsense, some of it needs to be done, but now it's out of here, and now you're saying, what am I going to replace it with?
Yeah, and I think that's important. What you've talked about trying to get it out there. I've talked about sort of my ideas and visualizing that, getting on a sheet of paper and ripping it up, and it doesn't have that impact upon me. Now, the artist's way has takes an approach where you write 3 pages, which is roughly 750 words, which may seem, I just tend to work those things out. But the thing is that by actually just free flowing and writing, just even if you just wrote, I have nothing to say, I have nothing to say, which most of us don't, we always have something to say, especially Garvin. And stop there, Garvin, don't want you starting just yet, I haven't finished.
Chitter-chatter.
So, chitter-chatter,
I am the voice in your head. I am the chatter you're trying to get rid of.
Oh, gotta get it out there. Hang on a second. He's gone.
Not that easy.
And not that easy. Can't rip him up. So basically, what the artist's way was actually suggesting is that you spend the first part of the morning just writing out your thoughts. Now, one of the things that's quite fascinating about that is that when you go out for a walk, you get energized and you feel as though you can take on the world or you can do other things. You feel motivated just because you've gone out and physically exercised. But when you actually write down for 3 pages, and just even writing and let it go, even if you just say, okay, I've got half an hour to write, and you write for half an hour, you just stop, even if it's nonsense, even if it's complete rubbish, what actually happens is you feel that same sense of well-being because you've let it go. You've uncluttered your mind. You've now allowed everything out, and you now become more observant in the world around you. You become more, those ideas, those visual things you were talking about, the dreams can now come back in, because they haven't got those little chitter-chat thing going on. You can now be an observer, which is why I think that open monitoring system seems to work, because if you then apply those 2 things, you're actually allowing yourself to start to observe the visual side of things. Now, just before we go on, one of the things that the cognitive behavioral therapy talks about is that the process of cognitive is looking at what you think and how that relates to how you feel, which is the physical and the emotional. And then it's what do you do after that, which is the behavioral side of things. So effectively, the way we feel, the way we think affects the way we feel, and both emotionally and physically. And so it's important to try and get rid of that negativity out of you.
I was talking to a friend just before this podcast or this session, and effectively he's going through something similar to ourselves. He wants to set up a podcast, but I was trying to pass on the learnings that we were having in terms of self-coaching ourselves and mentoring ourselves out. Actually, we're self-coaching ourselves in terms of getting rid of the chitter-chatter in each of our brains and trying to figure out what's real, what's not, what needs to be given advice, what needs to be dismissed out of hand and not given airtime or energy. And I was watching, I know you're going to say it's quite rare, but I was listening to him and hearing what he was saying. And so a lot of what he was saying was negative in the sense of he had all these exciting projects he wanted to do, but all he was kept, I said, when are you going to do it? When is the first part of it? When is the blank page going to have the first item on it? And I was trying to say, what we are finding is just do it. Just start doing it. Go from a blank to a something. Then we can criticize that something and try and build upon it. And he was going, no, I haven't got the equipment. I haven't got the YouTube account. I haven't got this. I said, well, you have the content. You have the story. I mean, you can work on all of that without ever having the other bits. Now I says, here's the bits. Here's the list of bits. Just get them. They are the least problem. That can be got in a day by ordering it until it gets delivered tomorrow, and it's 300 quid. And now you have the bits and no excuse to start. To get now, they're gone. You were given the most weighting to the least thing, to actually, then you don't have the second set of excuses of, well, now my chitter-chatter box is saying I'm not good enough, or it would never be that good, or no one will actually want this, or maybe now, because of this excuse is gone, I no longer have the excuse not to do, and now it's do or die. Now it's now you have to step up. Actually, Mark Metry, I was looking on LinkedIn there, he was talking about having like anxiety as a child and social anxiety, and didn't know where he's going to end up in life, and now he's pretty much lecturing to millions through LinkedIn as being an influencer and writing his books and about don't worry about being shy or whatever. Just you find your voice. Get rid of the chatterbox and find the inner voice that matters and give it an external platform and reach out and you might have an audience of one, and it might just be a mirror, it might just be you, but it's going to be the real you. It's not going to be all these voices of monkeys in cages, chitter and chattering and passing bananas around. It's going to be the gorilla back in the room, the elephant in the room. It's you.
Yeah, and I think if we go from the monkey or the gorilla in the room, what the biggest problem is you've got to open the door. You've got to open the door and let it out. Now, one of the things that there's a little saying that says, well, what's on your mind? And the thing is that quite often we don't get a chance to discuss what's on our mind. And sometimes it can be complete and absolute rubbish, but you need to express it. And I think that's one of the biggest problems that we all tend to have. Oh, if I tell you what I'm thinking about, you'll think I'm stupid. It'll sound silly. It'll be daft. And you kind of go, no, nothing is silly. Nothing is daft. It's more than likely that you don't realize that very thing that you've got to say, which you think is stupid, is not smart, is silly, could actually be the very thing that somebody else needs to hear to help them move in the direction that they need to go as well. So by sharing what's on your mind,
sharing is caring.
Gives you sharing is caring, which is quite interesting. Now, the other thing that was going on in my mind, which I'm going to let out now, was that during a little bit of the research of this, I like the X-Files and like the X-Files movie. And in the X-Files movie, the characters at the very beginning discover that there's a bomb on this building and everybody's gone to the wrong building. And the security guard is told to get everybody out. And he kind of goes, why? And the response back is, don't think, do.
Don't.
And that's what we have to do. Don't think,
I'm going to go one more because
and quite often that's the
our
thing.
little preamble, pre-research yesterday about what we talk about today, and in our head or little chat box we're going, oh my God, I don't know what to talk about, or is it okay? Are we going off on a rant? Well, that was me, because I do go off on a rant. I enjoy my rant, and I arrive at whatever makes sense to me. I'm externalizing. But backing it up a little bit, a word popped up, which was the word permission. I'm giving myself permission to go on a rant. Or to go on a little, in my thing, it's actually, I think it's called pivoting. I'm going iterate, pivot. I'm arriving at what it is I want to talk about, or what I like or dislike. I may not know what it is at the start of the sentence, but by the end of it, I'm arriving at that value thing, and I'm through these little outward iterations. And if anyone knows me, that's my personality. I filter on the outside. I iterate. I go off on a rant and a ramble. They walk away, take a drink, come back and go, he's there. Here he is. He's got the answer. But that aside, it's giving yourself permission to go on a rant. Giving yourself permission to externalize. Giving yourself permission to let the monkeys out of the cage. Giving yourself permission to be you. Giving yourself permission to trial and error. And this chitter-chatter of worry and stress and anxiety of what other people might think or otherwise is an awful lot of the time is you haven't given yourself permission. Who cares?
Well, I think one of the things that's quite interesting about that, because I was thinking about this as well, why do we need to give permission? One of the things that's what's fascinating is that as a youngster, I've been watching my grandson learning how to do things. He doesn't need to ask permission. He just kind of goes, oh, this is interesting. Let's find out how that works. Oh, they're doing this, and this. Okay, they didn't ask permission. Oh, let's try that. Blah, blah, blah. And then eventually, at some point, somebody will say no, because it might be dangerous. But then we go into a school system that tells us that we have to sit in rows. We have to put a hand up when we want to go to the toilet. We have to put a hand up when we've got an answer. And we're being conformed into a system of authority. And the teacher has authority. The teacher tells you what to do. And if you don't do as what you do, you get told off. And when we were kids, we got smacked.
I'm going to tell you, you're going to like this.
Do anymore.
But
if you were, so basically,
say the word study, but I was in Irish language. I don't mean to get on the Gael Gores and all the rest of it. Just I was not at one with the Irish language when I was in school. 14 years, I couldn't tell you what tá meant. I still can't. But using the word permission there. The only sentence I knew in Irish was on Will Calicum, go G on Letras Marche de Hully. I don't know what any of the words mean. I know it means, can I go to the toilet, please? And that you had to stick your hand up. You had to say it in Irish, because it was in a Christian Brothers school, God forbid. And that was it. You had to ask permission to go to the toilet. My wife still walks back and forward into every room, and we're in this house to this day, and says, I'm off to go to the toilet. I go, I need to ask permission. It's a bit more information than I need to know, but it's instilled in us. You let everyone know, we're going to the toilet. even in the pub, I'm off to the toilet. It's not that you're looking for permission, but it's actually, I think it's ingrained subliminally from going back to school and sticking their hands up. Can I go? Can I relieve myself? Can we, you want to come with me? That's all the women leave the dance floor in the nightclubs and pubs. We're actually saying, right, come on, we're going off here, we're going to have a chat about this bunch of lads or what we really think of them or shopping. But it's, I will Caligum, go Geoletris, Marshall, I don't even know if I'm saying it right, but you need permission. Now we don't, but we still ask.
But the interesting thing is that if you suddenly start to look at all the people that have been successful in the big organizations, most of those are dropouts. They're people that didn't conform to the system in school. They were the guys that got the Fs, failures all the time. But it wasn't because they were stupid or silly or daft. It was because they couldn't see the point. They actually rebelled and they didn't conform. And they carried on. They didn't seek permission to do things.
A lot of the time, it wasn't that they didn't seek permission. I think we touched on this maybe last year. It's most of the time they didn't know why they needed a permission. They didn't know about the legalities, the copyright issues, the infringement potentials, the risks analysis. So actually, they didn't ask permission. It's like of the legals, of the accountants. They just went off and did it unbeknownst to themselves that they weren't allowed to do it or shouldn't be allowed to do it. But when they actually did it and got to a certain level, then at that when they wanted to formalize it, then we were talking about TikTok yesterday. We're saying they just introduced this new for business accounts. The business accounts can no longer use the music in certain libraries, or most of the libraries for that matter. They no longer have permission that the private accounts have because of copyright infringement for commercialization. But 5 minutes ago, it was fine, but it was never fine. It was always copyright infringement. It's just the system is now caught up to go, we want money, pay for the license, you're not allowed to do this anymore. You had a succulent seat, you liked it, you got to your audience, but the price now is, or we sue you. But if you started at the beginning going, you have that's what stops me doing most things. It's the permissions of copyright, of legal, of taxman, of form filling, and that's putting on the chatterbox is being fed. And the last thing we're talking about there is, actually, are we allowed to do a podcast? Are we infringing copyright in some of the things we're saying? And we look at it afterwards and go, we mentioned the big red book, or we mentioned the joint within and Tony Robbins, and we'll mention it somewhere in the writing, thank you for this, and referring to that. But there's always a danger that someone is going to, I feel that because I'm an accountant, or was an accountant, going, dot your I's and cross your T's. And make sure no one's going to sue you.
And the terminology that you use all the time is compliance, that we have to comply to those rules and regulations.
What the Daleks
quite
used
often
to say,
they're put.
I know it's we will exterminate, or you must comply, you must comply. That's it. I think it is. I'm not too sure, but it's one of those sort of things. Yeah, hearing a lot of crackling. Actually, you're not sure it's coming from your side as well. Well, it's probably it's my head.
A little bit of distortion going on there, but. No, it's that, you must comply, you must comply. The other one is that, what did the Borgs used to say?
That's resistance is futile, yeah.
Resistance, yeah, so there's the other thing. So you've got compliance.
Well, resistance is futile, you must comply, and it's now GDPR.
Yeah.
GDPR is the Borg. No, never mind that, copyright is the Borg. You're going, and no, forget all that again. That's feeding the chatterbox. We don't even know what the product is. We don't even know who the audience is. We don't even know if you like or dislike it. I want to paint a painting, maybe. I want to sing a song. I want to do a little dance. But whatever the individual wants to do, don't feed. Don't be the Borg. Don't be worried about the resistance is futile. Don't worry about the compliance. Unless you're going off to shoot somebody and rob a bank. There's a certain amount of, that type of thing. Within the law. Within the law, be it corporate law or civic law, be legal, but enjoy yourself, be you. Don't feed the chatterbox.
I think it's about being creative. It's about being creative and see what possibilities are out there and start to explore things.
Or in there. It's not even out there.
Not to be so hard on yourself as you start off on that journey. Because quite often, because of the way that there is a sense of impatience in the world that we have, because people fail almost straight away, which is what's going to happen. I mean, Neo didn't jump between two buildings straight away. He had to have another go.
Well, he had to take a tablet, didn't he? He had to take red or blue. I don't know which is the right one or which is the wrong one. We're saying, do you take a pill at all? You're going. It's. The thing is actually to take whichever the right pill there was, and I'm not too sure which one it was. It actually doesn't matter.
It didn't matter. No, he had two options, and he could choose whichever one he wanted.
No, I think that the options was know the real world or fall back into the slumber of this bland existence. So I mean,
yes, but who says which one's right or wrong?
Well, again, it's your chatterbox. It's like saying, will you have the courage to step forward? No, you don't need the courage immediately. You can gain the courage. But the whole point is back to the thing. If you're not happy with the way things are, you've got to take the right pill and move forward. But if you're happy and if you're fearful that the fear will be too much and the risk is too much, well, take the other pill and be happy where you are. But
don't forget, there's a character called Cypher who did take the same pill that Neo took, and later on he took the red pill because he saw what reality was, and then he decided to take the blue pill later on because he wanted to go back into that idea of not knowing.
But then again, you had to go on the warpath to see. The other side was when you step out, you got to have the courage and conviction to continue. You got to not listen to Chatterbox anymore. You go on the journey of change and transformation. It's not going to take a minute. It's not going to take a day. It's going to take a lifetime. And the whole point is to understand that you're going on a journey of growth for the rest of your life because you're saying, I'm not happy to take the wrong pill and just exist a mundane, put up with, sort of existence. I'm not happy. You recognize the fact you're not happy. So then, doesn't matter what's going to make you happy. We're going. You can go. You have permission to go on that journey.
Yeah, I think the other thing is that most people, the reason why that chatterbox takes advantage of them is it turns this idea into it's either one way or the other. It's either
my way or the highway.
Yeah, and the thing is, it's made so dramatic, and you kind of go, no. Break it down into smaller parts, and then you can sort of take little steps, gradually work your way up, and before you know it, you'll have actually climbed that mountain. But don't make it a mountain in the first place. Make it a little step. Do what you can do within your own competency at this particular point in time, and actually feel confident that you can. And yes, you'll fall down occasionally, but just get up and carry on. That's what the baby does.
Going back to what you just said a little earlier in this conversation, it was, maybe we're sort of coaching, self-coaching a bit, coaching each other, mentoring ourselves a bit, mentoring each other. It's finding, what they say out there is, don't find the friends that put you down, the people that put you down, shut you up and leave you there and talk about themselves and it's all about them and not about you. If you can't find your voice in that crowd and you want to be heard and want to step up, you're in the wrong crowd. Move crowds. I used to say, look, I don't want to be in a room full of accountants as an accountant. That's all the same. I want to be in the room full of marketeers and be the only accountant in the room. I want to be a big fish, like the big fish in the small pond, not a small fish in a big pond. So no, I don't know what that means in a lot of context, but the whole point is, find someone that's like yourself or in a similar predicament or wants to go on a journey. And that's what all these self-help books are about. They're out there in mentor land and YouTube land, and you can read them. You can start to see there's lots of people who are like you or are like you. And if you want to go on a journey, well, go on a journey with us here. We're saying we don't know what's going to happen. Now, we know something's going to happen.
About that is, the interesting thing about that is that do also be careful, because some of the people that you may seem to get on well will be actually fueling the little doubt thing and saying, oh, stay safe, stay with us.
That's what makes them feel good about themselves.
Yeah. And that means they may look as though they're being friendly, but the person that is actually quite a challenge to you, that you seem to get really quite annoyed about or whatever, they may be the best person that you need to ally with.
That's what they say.
Because they'll actually help lift you out of the rut.
You're not meant to be in a room full of similar people. You're meant to be meant to feel that that these are all your mentors or growth. So if you can aspire to just move one step up the ladder, you'll always look up and see, look, these are billionaires, millionaires, and gods of industry, and go, it's not that you're going to try and be one, but if you aspire to learn a bit more, do a bit more, make a difference, do a change, then when you look back down the ladder, you would have moved up a few rungs, you wouldn't have noticed. But if you start looking down the ladder, like it's not, it's more this metaphorical, where are you? Where is okay? It could be a fireman's ladder or it could be like a step ladder. It doesn't, and the distances don't really matter. It's more the fact you found a ladder, you're on the ladder, and you're moving up. You can go down or up all you want. You can change ladders. We're saying it's okay. It's okay to give yourself permission. Stop listening to the chitter chatter. Give your inner voice an external voice. Start to go on a journey. It doesn't need to be the end journey. It's like a holiday for the soul. You're going to go and do something new. We've learned in the last couple of days that there's a bunch of projects starting to come into our vision that they're all write a book, sing a song.
How's that?
Someone tried to jump in. The same person, believe it or not, rang in my middle of my rant. Well, I'm going to go, it's okay to start something new, a new project. It doesn't need to be the end game at the beginning, but at least it's a game, George.
Yep, absolutely. And I think that's how I've managed to write all the scripts I've done, to write a couple of books, to write several of the films I've actually made. May not have been successful, but each one of them have actually taken me next step, closer and closer and closer, building that confidence up. Now, the thing is that some of those things that I've written in the past, which may not seem to be very important at the moment, when we get doing the books that we see ourselves doing in the not too distant future, when they become successful, then people want to find out what we've done in the past. We'll have a resource of information that we can say, a resource of product that we can say, well, actually, we've done this in the past. We'll repackage it, and it's ready to go.
Actually, you remind me,
and that will actually boost.
You remind me of the word imposter syndrome a little bit, but in the sense of I hear you saying the books are going to be. We're allowed to say they're going to be successful, but the measure of success in my mind now at the moment is the mere fact that I get, or you probably have a different measure of success, it onto paper and out of my mind and have created a book, be it e-book or fucking the Encyclopedia Britannica. That to me is success. I don't care if anyone buys it, reads it, doesn't. It's an audience of one. It wasn't there before. Now it is. And I feel we've contributed to the universe.
Yeah, and I think that's the key thing, is that the successes that we've actually made have been the success of actually writing it in the first place, then getting it edited.
These are your ticks, exactly.
The little things, they're all the success things.
It's not a monetary thing.
Actually, one of the things, you're talking about the audience of one of the successes was the fact that I sent it over to my dad. My dad got it at 9:15 in the morning. By 1 o'clock, he said, through my mum, that he was quite annoyed with me. By 5 o'clock, he rang me up, and I thought, oh, wait, what am I going to do? He says, I finished it. From 9 o'clock to 5 o'clock, he actually sat there. Nobody was allowed to talk to him. He read my book, and he said, that was a bloody good, John.
Good. So the chitter chatter.
That's all I needed.
Give those monkeys an open cage and put a gorilla inside and make him King Kong. Go have a bit of fun. Get rid of the chitter chatter.
And tell him not to think, but to do. One voice. Thank you. Look forward to seeing you again. Bye for now.
Hope you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe and click on the bell for notifications.